Good afternoon, and welcome to the Westport Board of Health November 14th, 2022 meeting, which I am calling to order. First, under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. And we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to zip along in this meeting and have a nice short meeting, so Valerie can get on to the Board of Selectmen at 6 o'clock. We'll start with the Director of Public Health, his written report. Any questions from the board? Any comments?
None from me.
Seeing none, we'll move on to your verbal report update.
Start with the COVID update. November, we have 22 confirmed cases to date, no hospitalizations, no deaths. So vaccinations have been pretty strong for the boosters and for COVID, between what the apothecary does on a daily basis and then the joint clinics that we run with them. Quite a few people of all ages have been getting vaccinated, all eligible people. So it's on a positive note that people are coming out for that. And we've given out more flu vaccinations this year than we have in the last few years. So people are coming out for that. So
Okay.
doing pretty good with that. Nothing to report on the pump reports. Everything looks good. Animal control, Nick is just doing his thing between all the calls that you see on his report here, on the written report, keeps him quite busy.
Yeah.
And he's trying to, he's making a good clip at the barn book inspections.
Mm-hmm.
Joe helps him when he can, but, predominantly Nick's been out there shouldering most of the barn books, so he's doing pretty good with that. Transfer station, on November 6th, we had our new hire Ryan started. Seems to be doing pretty well, no issues. He's going to school for his Class B and studying for his hoistings. I don't anticipate any issues with that, so far so good with transfer station and the new hire. That's it.
Just a couple of reminders, we still have test kits, I believe, in the office, COVID test kits if people need them. And now that leaves are pretty much down, people can bring their yard waste to the transfer station for composting. Anything else on that?
So this could fit under updates, but it just kind of also could fit here too, which is, so remember at our last meeting, we had the gentleman, Mr. Papa, who came in complaining of the smoke next door, and so I reached out to DEP, and they sent a strike force inspector, and Joe joined him, and they did an inspection, and it appeared at the time, that the property owner wasn't using their outdoor boiler for burning trash, but I think they did convince him that he needed to raise the stack on the boiler so that it wouldn't spread smoke through the neighborhood. So it seemed like a successful event or interaction, which hopefully will lead to voluntary compliance.
Great.
So that was good, and I was really glad that DEP came along, because it's really their regulations, which we can enforce, but I think it's a lot more potent when they come in that kind of situation, because otherwise we're starting from a less robust posture. So anyway, that was good. So
Great.
that
Thank
worked
you.
out well. Yeah.
I just have two more things I'd like to add to my report. So I just wanted to mention the PHE grant is still moving forward very well. We have mandatory monthly meetings, and I have one on Wednesday morning that I'll be involved with. The MOUs for the 6 communities, I'm just waiting on 3 more. We'll be getting into the budget and hiring people, I'm hoping sometime by the middle of December. I'm still working out some details with how that hiring process is gonna work, if we're gonna hire them in through the town or independent contractors. I did meet with Jim Hartnett last week on Thursday to go over the FY24 budgets, and just waiting for him to send back his recommendations. I don't think we're gonna see too many increases, so, but, if any, but, we didn't ask for much, or if anything at all this, for FY24, so I'm hoping, it's not too bad.
Thank you. And just for the general public edification, just a reminder, the public PHE grant, it stands for Public Health Excellence. This is something that Westport applied for as the lead community with 5 other communities. It's a $300,000 annual grant for 10 years that will allow us to support shared staffing amongst those 6 communities. So that will help us do our work. So we're pleased about that.
And Westport is the lead community on
Right.
that endeavor.
I actually thought of a question I had. So I recall that a while ago, I guess it would have been the town, but the fire department as the lead emergency, commander, that they got a grant to update our emergency response plan. And have you heard anything about that?
I have not, but I also haven't reached out to Chief Legenda to ask him about it either. So I'll make sure I make a note and I'll reach out to him this week.
Okay, that'd be great.
What, do you know when they received the grant?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, over the summer, maybe?
Okay, so it was this year?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was this year, yeah, it was fairly recent. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And it got mentioned, I think, at the last Climate Resiliency Committee meeting, because I think maybe, I don't know, anyway, I won't further complicate it, but if there's something going on, I thought, maybe we'd want a seat at the table or kind of know where it was going or.
Sure, I'll reach out to him.
Yeah.
And I have a question, just the transfer station, and any update on the bathroom and what's happening with that?
So we have the handicap accessible porta-john with heat in place. That's the temporary solution. I don't know, the town administrator hasn't filled me in on the long-term solution. I know that he was working with Diamond on the cemetery, and I hear through the grapevine they may be starting some work down there this week. But I don't know if that's gonna be the same after they're done with the cemetery. Are they gonna come over to the transfer station? I haven't really heard definitely what's happening with that. So we have this unit in place. We also received the hot water hand sink last week. It just we haven't had a chance to set it up. I plan on setting it up Wednesday. So I'll set it up on Wednesday.
In the building?
The hot water hand sink, yeah, I think really my only choice is to put it inside the new shed. It's, it's not too big and intrusive, so be fine.
Thank you. And we don't have any update on the bicycle grant?
So, no, I just re-emailed Janice Parr from DEP and let her know my schedule for the week, and hopefully that she reaches back out to me and we can schedule, she said, last time we communicated, she said, we'll just discuss next steps. Meeting should be 20 minutes long, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, moving on to minutes. I believe I missed the last meeting, so we held a bunch of minutes. We have from June 1st, 2002, October 5th, 2002, October 17th, 2002. The 5th was a special meeting. The 21st was also a special meeting. And October 31st, Halloween, was a regular meeting. Are there any questions or concerns about any of those minutes?
I had one question on October 21st.
Okay.
I don't know if other people have it written in there, something, the word, whoops, sorry. On page 3, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, does anybody
Uh-huh.
have something written in?
Yes, not. It is not reasonable.
That's, in my notes, Matt said that it was reasonable to have it by February 1st. So I don't know why that word was written in there.
Because
Is that,
was this a recorded meeting, or I'm pretty sure it's not feasible by February 1st because
oh,
of,
because we were talking about doing it as soon as possible, and you said by, I could recheck my notes. I
Yeah.
thought you said that by February 1st it was,
I think we
it was
talked
feasible.
about just about how, like, how many were they gonna be, and how many letters, and, yeah, it's gonna, I don't think it's gonna possible by February
Okay.
1st. And apologize if I misinterpreted at the meeting.
Okay. Then otherwise, I have no questions or changes. You, Phil?
No,
The minutes, okay, so I move that we approve.
Can I just interrupt? Can you do
Oh.
the first 4 separately? Because I'm gonna have to abstain on the last one.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so that's June 1st, October
5th,
5th. Oh, actually, there was a change on October 5th. When we talked about, at the bottom, motion to contract with Potter and Sons, I think I had suggested that we get a bid.
we talked about that, but we did talk about it, but there was no,
Right, we did, I always ask for 3 quotes, and this is the only one that I got back.
Okay, all right then, I move that we approve the minutes from June 1st, October 5th, October 17th, and October 21st.
second.
motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of June 1st, October 5th, 17th, and 21st. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. And then-
Okay, and Phil, if you don't have any questions about the October 31st one, I move that, that we approve the minutes from October 31st.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of October 31st. All in favor?
Aye.
And I abstain, I was absent. So that's 2-0 or 2. Thank you. Okay, we have an appointment at 4:30 with Mr. Potter. So we have 15 minutes in between. And I know that there are probably some board member updates. And I know
Excuse
that-
me, Tanya, just the signature folders down with Donna,
Yeah.
Okay.
if you could, that could just make its way around.
Sure, yep, thank you. I know, Phil, you had wanted to talk about the DEP proposed regulatory changes to Title V and the watershed permit. Do you want to do that now?
Sure, yeah. So, so I circulated, the materials, which, contained revisions to Title V related to their nitrogen, changes in nitrogen loading limitations, and which really, I think, as, we've talked about, has this requirement for all new construction to be best available nitrogen-reducing technology, and all existing facilities, septic systems, that received a certificate of compliance would have to replace whatever their existing system was with best available nitrogen-reducing technology. And then that, and there are some exceptions, to that. If you've replaced, if a system with nitrogen-reducing technology has been installed a year prior to the regulation, their proposed regulations. And And then the other exception, of course, is if the town signs on to a watershed permit. And the regulations kind of lays out all the elements of what that means, which is essentially, to bring the town into compliance with the TMDL for the river over the next 20 years. And there's a designation process that DEP kicks off, kind of on their own timetable, and then the town has an opportunity to, respond to that, whether or not to file a notice of intent, and then to file an application, and then some period of time to file the application, and then, which I would just say is distinct from the integrated plan that, the town developed maybe 2 years ago now, more. This actually requires specific commitments that the town will do kind of in 5-year increments, to reach the goal. And I circulated to you my draft comments, kind of critique on some of the issues I thought was worth raising with DEP, both about those 2 limitations or conditions for the best available nitrogen-reducing technology. This one being limiting the requirement to just systems that have certificates of compliance, because I think our audit of all the files are gonna show there's a lot of systems without certificates of compliance, at least now. But that is triggered by the date of the designation, so if DEP doesn't come back and say, now I want to designate you, or designate the Westport River as a nitrogen-sensitive area, then, every year we would lower that level because we would be closing out more systems, and et cetera. But still, I still think there'd be a lot. And I kind of think more punitive is requiring owners of systems who would voluntarily put in nitrogen-reducing technology to only allow those that were basically, put in 2021, not to have to replace their systems again, or at least in the current situation where, there is no outstanding new technology on the horizon. It just seems that you would have people who put in systems a year ago at 19, and people who put in systems going back at 19 would be like put in 2 different categories. It just seemed to me, I didn't quite understand why they did that. So I just thought it was worth raising. So the comments are due middle of December, and then there are 2 public information sessions coming up really soon. One's on Wednesday, and I think maybe the other one is tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's Tuesday
Right.
and Wednesday.
And I signed up for the one on Wednesday because during the day, so not during dinner time. And then I think there's actually in-person public hearings happening at the end of the month, one in Lakeville. And I think they'll probably be online too, but I think November 30th is one in Lakeville. And then the public comment period closes 2 weeks after that. And so I think we could, expect the regulations out, to be pretty early in the beginning of the next year. So.
Well, I appreciate your diligence in reviewing both the draft regulations and sort of outlining everything.
I mean, I'm glad not this meeting, but maybe, what I was thinking is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just say that after after the Wednesday DEP presentation, to kind of come back and discuss
Mhm.
whether, what, like, I kind of do understand the regulations correctly, and is that the position we want to recommend, to the select board? Because, reasonable people could differ about what I thought was, that I raised questions about, because, there are reasonable opposition to those, I guess is what I'm saying. Or at least I've argued between me and me. I said, okay, well, I can see why, it's economically less punitive to only, limit it to certificates of, people that have certificates of compliance. And, that similarly, if there was really good technology that came along, that would really made a difference. Like all of a sudden, someone come up with a system that got everybody down to 5, and it wasn't that, maybe that would be a good thing. But anyway, so we could have that we'll have plenty of time to have that conversation.
Well, it sounds like the Q&A session, either Tuesday or Wednesday,
Yeah,
would be an opportunity to clarify, like, even the definition of best available nitrogen reducing technology is
Yeah.
not really clear.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
It's as if that there's one system that's the best, that everybody has to go for. I don't think that's what they intend.
Well, that's really, based on I think this is based on, the best available control technology that's done for air pollution systems.
Uh-huh.
And it does actually really create a monopoly for that system, and that is the technology driving aspect of it. So if, you are an innovator, you can, if you're successful, then your investment will pay off, because everyone will have to buy, not everybody, but and here's one of the not everybody differences, is that in that situation, DEP actually sets a price per ton of emissions, or whatever the pollutant is that they are seeking to control. And so if you are an emitter of this, you can come in and say, this great new technology, it will cost more for me to do that than the maximum price per ton, and you can get out of doing it. So maybe, you're a small operation or whatever, you don't emit that many tons, and so, but you still have to pay all the money to put this in, and it's just too much per ton, but they don't have any of that. But I agree that it would be, and particularly adding the provisional and the pilot programs, things that I think DEP would have to have a whole system to do that. Because in back, there are all, in the air quality, there are all these experts who look over this stuff and then say, yes, we agree this is the right technology, and yes, we're gonna set a price limit on it, and none of that is in this, so I don't know how it would work.
Yeah, that's a big question.
But, yeah, so, but since I thought the comments were due tomorrow, I limited what I was gonna try to put together.
Okay. Well, why don't we?
There's more there to talk about.
Plan on the 28th, our next regular meeting, would be before the hearing, but they're not gonna make any comments at the hearing.
Right, I
So-
think, yeah.
So by then, we will have the input from the info session, and
Yeah.
we can set aside some
Yeah,
time, put it
and
on the agenda.
Right, and we can yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I think we offered to Jim was whether this, because he was the signatory on that whole original set of questions that we had, of which I said I didn't send along, but maybe just for my own edification. I went through the regulations and kind of identified where I thought the regulations answered questions that we had asked
Uh-huh.
and where they hadn't. And I just didn't circulate that, because I just thought,
Okay.
maybe it's just me who wants to know this, but then I thought,
Well, if you
anyway,
can
so-
circulate that before the next meeting, then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sure we'd
So I can,
round out the discussion.
yeah, so I can circulate that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any board member updates for you?
Just helping with the cesspool
Research.
research, which is a very interesting process. Yeah, so it's gonna take a while to get this done.
Yep. So I'll just give an update about, Donna and I have now been doing that sort of a second review of the data that John has been pulling together of all the septic system files to identify who's got a cesspool, who has a pit and tank, who has a regular septic system, et cetera. And based on his first notebook full, which was about 1,000 properties, we had 225 that had no plans in the file, 19 cesspools and 104 pits. Based on sort of cleaning up, a lot of the 59 of those, 225 with no plans, were in fact no such address, either a vacant lot, never existed, or was combined with another lot. So the 225 is a high count. And then there were 12 of those 225 that had a plan that was in process, either being reviewed or approved or waiting for an as-built or whatever. And then another 60 had, based on the assessor's records, had an indication that the house was built after 1970, so unlikely to be a cesspool. So in other words, the whole point is that number gets whittled down a lot. Then of the 19 cesspools, 3 have a repair plan in process, and so they're.
That's great. That's good to know.
That's kind
But
of
it is quite a tedious process.
It is very tedious.
To get the
Yeah,
the information and going through the files and then looking
Right.
for some information online. There were, in my beginning of doing this, some that had no plans were actually duplexes, and there was a plan for the other address.
Right.
So
Right,
that's
yeah.
another issue, that we're seeing no plans, but there is a plan, it's just that it's shared in the duplex.
so someone in a parallel thing, I think I mentioned it, but I didn't have the assessor's record, is I took the list of systems that were generated from the integrated plan, which I think were primarily looked at as pump reports or maybe something else, and I went through the files and identified, which of those we had records of upgrades, and which of those, of which there was a lot, had no plans. And then some of them actually, had an inspection report where there was a cesspool that had passed, and then there was, but there was nothing had been filed afterwards. But, of course, I didn't look at also what was pending either. So, and then, anyway.
Well, it'll be several more months before we complete it, but we should by the end have a list of everybody we know as a cesspool. And then we'll have to also reach out to people who have no septic plan on file.
Right.
And also
Right.
how we want to address pits and
Right.
tanks, so.
I even, and I mentioned this to Matt, but I identified, just happened to be 2 plans where which went back quite a way, where the owners at the time, and I think they were related to transfers or inspections, had entered into agreements with the board to install new systems, but there were no new plans.
Yeah.
And I'd be surprised if they were pending, because they were they were from the mid-90s. So I mentioned to Matt, we should
Yep, well,
knock on their door about that, so to speak.
right, yeah, there will be some opportunity to catch up with folks.
And I started to draft the FAQ that I think, for the club, you know,
Right.
and I'm gonna, just take original, work with Watershed Alliance just to.
Great, okay.
And then I'll obviously get back to you and Matt on.
Okay, sounds good. Well, it is now 4:30, and we have an appointment with Mr. Potter, who is present. And this is an informal discussion for two properties, 37 Palmer Lane and 273 Cornell Road, which have some idiosyncrasies to them, apparently.
What's that, please?
They have something unusual that you want to talk about?
Yes. I need guidance.
Okay. Well, we never fail to provide guidance.
This
Okay.
is, that's the plan I'm coming up with, if you can see it now. This is just to give you orientation. This is Palmer Lane, these are rooms up here, and we're heading into down to the river.
Okay.
So I have an odd-shaped lot, very small. The town record says it's a two-bedroom home. I went inside, and when we perk it, I'll have John go in and check it, but there are 3 bedrooms in the house.
Okay.
So I got a well across the street, and that is roughly 67 feet from the proposed leaching area. The only thing I can fit in there is on the microphone. Can't hear me.
Probably can.
Okay. The only, I'm gonna be 67 feet away from the proposed leach field. The only leach system I can use is a bottomless sand filter for size.
Right.
I'm gonna end up being 5 feet from the property line, I may have to cut this corner off. I've sized it for 8 by 24 for a 2-bedroom. I had to assume a 1 in 15 perk. We haven't perked it. I wanna perk it Monday, but the perk schedule kinda got messed up with John on vacation and in the transfer station, whatever. So, but I perked all around this. I fixed 5 systems on this lane, all cesspools. That's the cesspool right there, and I think it's about 20 feet away from the well. And what I'm saying is the tank can fill this, so it was his question, I can't get 50 feet away from the well. This line here is 50 feet away from this well. That's their well right there. So I'm gonna get a variance on that, I assume. Am I correct?
I think that's what we've been doing up to this
Right.
point.
I don't think you need it, but if you need it, I'll have to do it. But-
Yeah,
That's what I end up with.
but, yeah.
So assuming a 1 in 15 perk or less, that's what I'm coming up with. I just wanna make sure that you concur with that. We don't have any choice.
Okay.
I don't-
You have no other
There's no
choice.
wetlands involved, I'm way up from the river itself, as far as flood zone goes, there's no flood zone. There's no other wells within 100 feet except for the one across the street. So
And
that's,
so you're designing a 3-bedroom flow.
yeah, 1 in 15 perk, that will take care of my 3-bedroom flow. I can't reduce the area because I'm asking for a variance to the well. And Title V says you can. So I just wanted to make sure you concur with that, that's all. In my thought process.
So I had to shut that door for a sec. So are you gonna go with the BSF?
Yes, I gotta, nothing else is gonna fit there.
So, yeah, I briefly talked about him in the office last week about this.
Yeah,
I think that's a good plan. That's his only plan. Only way you could go with that, his only option.
I always forget, about there are certain conditions in the BSF related to some setbacks that can't be waived or something like that?
I'll have to take a look at that.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
I'm not aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I just remember when this, came up in another, but maybe I'm
All I can say is,
confused about it.
when I looked at the project, I talked to the prospective
Yeah.
buyer and the realtors, and they're willing to put a tight tank in.
Yeah.
And that was a question I had for Matt, and he said, maybe you can put a BSF in. So I did some design based on assumptions, and we all know what assume spells, but I'm pretty confident I'm gonna be close. I've done I've done 5 houses down here, and I know the perk rates, and the water tables are good, so I'll do the best I can with it. But that's the premise that I have,
Okay.
that's the situation that I
I
have.
don't suppose they would be doing D9.
It's D-night.
Oh, it is?
A BSF has to be D-night, you can't,
Oh, okay.
because you can't pump any TSS through the system, they plug it. Has to be D-night.
Okay.
And the other question I had, being D-night, do we really have to, they're gonna test the well anyway, but do we have to test the well across the street? Because if it were higher nitrates,
It
we
would
put a
not.
D-night in.
Right, if you're putting D9 in automatically, I would, for that homeowners, you know, would be good information for them to have.
Yeah,
But, it's not gonna impact.
it's not gonna impact the design.
Right,
So well across the street, 100 feet away?
No.
67.
Six-
So it wouldn't have to be subject to 3 years of water testing anyways then?
Well, but if it were higher nitrates, then the board would require a D-night system to go in. We are putting a D-night system in, so what else can we do?
Well, I know that, I'm just saying that it's spelled out in a different regulation that
Yeah.
if the well's less than 100 feet away, then you have to
Right.
do 3 years of testing.
Right.
I think what he's asking about,
Well-
testing beforehand versus the follow,
Oh, yeah, beforehand, I would say no,
yeah.
but, over the 3-year period, it's gonna be tested
Well, that's
anyways.
what I'm asking,
Yeah.
because that requirement, before you submit the plan, slows everything down, because the water testers are very, very slow.
Yeah,
The labs are very slow,
so I'd say, I'll leave it up to the board, but beforehand,
yeah.
you know,
I don't think it's not gonna impact our decision-making, so it's not a data
Right.
point we need, but the
Right.
testing afterwards.
That's
will
fine.
still be part of it.
That's fine, that'll help the process.
But it would be an interesting piece of data for comparison.
Right, but we are gonna get the data because of 3 years of well testing. Okay,
Okay, that's
so,
one.
one
Number 2
advice given,
is, this is a home, 273 Cornell Road. There's an existing home here, a 3-bedroom home. And what the people wanna do, the daughter is moving back from Europe. She's been working in Europe, she's come home, and the parents are elderly, so what she wants to do is to build in-law apartment back here. This is a garage, a new garage. So she has a 3-bedroom system now, which has failed Title V. So my intention is, I've done the perk test to repair that, installing a 3-bedroom system. There are 3 bedrooms in the house, 2 of them kind of normal size, 1 is like a pantry. So I don't think it meets the definition of a bedroom anyway. So I suggested to her, see, they use that as a computer room, my parents, is make that a non-bedroom, open the doorway up or whatever,
yeah.
and take a bedroom from here and put it in here. Add it to this floor, so that you end up with, in total, a 3-bedroom home. It's a 1.8 acre lot, there are no wells involved. Their well is well over 100 feet, the radius is up in here. So that's my question. If it's a 3-bedroom repair, then she doesn't have to put in D-night, that's the question. I would have to put a tank up here and run it into the D-box this way. And this tank would run into here.
Right. I think the definition technically says, new construction is if there's a demolition and reconstruction on the assumption if you're tearing down a house,
Yeah,
you have the resources,
I agree.
this is not a tear down.
No,
So I think there's room for consideration, in my opinion, but I'll see what the other.
I'm not looking for, I just need a verbal.
Well, yeah, well, I thought, because it's not, because it, and Matt and I talked about it a little bit, so it's like a new structure that requires an occupancy permit is like the definition of new construction or an increase in design flow. And so this isn't like a situation where someone's tearing down a house and then rebuilding on the same footprint with the same system. I think this is building a totally separate structure.
Right.
And so I thought that it did require, you know, because of that, because it's a new structure with that requires an occupancy permit, that it fell under that part of the definition of new construction. And, because otherwise I thought you would, because then you do get into situations where, you know, as long as the design flow stays the same, it doesn't matter if they're like building a whole new it's kind of like, well, you know, we're tearing this down and we're building up, whether it was a fire or anything, we're just building a new house on the same property, but we're connecting it to the same system. Like, what's the difference between that scenario and this scenario, really? And I just thought it opened up. It was,
I think with the, and I understand the occupancy permit part of it, but I think what they're saying is if I take this garage and that becomes a hobby shop, and I put a bathroom in there, I don't really need an occupancy permit, because it's not gonna be an occupiable
right,
space.
right, well, then it's not, yeah, it's not a
Right.
bedroom.
But if you need an occupancy permit, that means you have a bedroom going in.
Right.
A livable space, and my answer to that is, yes, you need an occupancy permit, but it doesn't mean additional flow. You're gonna demolish the bedroom, make it a non-bedroom, and that would be the demolition part of it.
Right. Well, it's just that is, if you were going, if new construction was designed, if new construction was defined just as an increase in flow,
Right, always has been. but,
then, I mean, that's part one, that was the only part of it,
Right,
then you would be totally right.
yeah,
I think it's the part that says, you know, any new structure which requires an occupancy permit, is, or an increase in design flow. And I'm just saying, if you, that I think what you're proposing just falls under that, you know, that first part of it,
mhm.
the new construction with an occupancy permit. And I think, yeah, so that, I guess, we don't have the regs in front of us, but
I forgot to bring my.
Yeah.
I made a copy of it, but I didn't bring it with
I
me.
can go upstairs and get them, I got them on my desk.
I don't know if we, you know.
Well, the definition in Title V and the definition in our reg are the same
Mhm.
when it comes to that. And, you know, a new structure that requires an occupancy permit is considered new construction. Then it goes on to say, or if you do an increase in flow. So, I don't really, you know, how you guys want to interpret that, but because it's, you know, the situation where they're decommissioning the bedroom but they are building a new structure with another bedroom, but there is no increase in flow. But it seems pretty clear in the definition to me.
Because it's not or, it's not and, it's or. It's not new construction and an increase in flow.
Right.
It's new or. It's like, so, which I guess part of what, well, I guess, you know, just consistent with what Tanya's saying, I think it may be more that they don't want, you know, they want all the new I don't think they were focused on D-night. I think they were focused on all the new construction, all the new setbacks and constructions that apply to new,
Right,
you know, to new construction with new bedrooms, and they just didn't want
right.
you to be able to come in and say, okay, well, it just so happens that the well is, you know, 50 feet away from the, or
Right.
51 feet away from the house,
No, no,
whatever.
no.
That's why they did it, but I think that was the logic to it. It's just that we've, through our local rule, we've tied D-night to that same definition, which I thought we were trying to do for consistency purposes, so you didn't have so we didn't have a separate definition in Title V for what
Right.
new construction was, which is,
I'm just
I
saying,
thought was the right thing
the
to do.
demolition part of it, to me, is satisfied by the elimination of a bedroom in that house, the existing house.
Right,
And I can understand the occupancy permit, because, like I said, I can put a bathroom in the shop, make this a hobby shop or whatever, and this is gonna be a livable dwelling, but
well, if you
Overall.
converted the garage well, I don't know.
No, you can
If
put a
you took the
bathroom.
garage as it was and put a bedroom in it, I don't really know. I guess that's a more
No.
subtle thing.
No, I have a lot of calls for people who want to put a bathroom in a garage or a shop or whatever, instead of
No,
walking back.
Well,
and
that
forth.
doesn't count. I mean, if you
That's a
actually,
different thing.
if you were, maybe did that. But if you said, I'm gonna convert this garage by putting a bedroom in,
That's
because we don't care about bathrooms. I mean, we just count bedrooms, then, I don't know, you know, but here you're building something new, right?
Yes, this is a new structure.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm gonna have to answer that question.
Mike, I've had a meeting, thank you. I'll call you back. That's one of my men.
I would expect that if something needs an occupancy permit, is the way they kind of define new construction.
Yeah.
Like if you converted the garage and put a bedroom in it, I mean, made it a living place,
I agree with that.
you know,
I
that
agree with
probably
this
is the
occupancy.
same, you know, is the same thing, for the reasons I think Title V wants to do it, which
But
is not so
I
much.
say the
for
flow,
DNR.
no matter what's happening here, the flow stays constant, there's no increase.
I don't, I don't disagree with that, but I just think it kind of writes out the new construction part if we just focus on the design flow thing.
Right.
Which I don't think is what Title V or we were thinking about when we did.
Whatever you wanna do, just tell me what I gotta do, that's it.
Any,
Well, it's the or. The fact that it is a new construction, it's a new purpose for a building, so the occupancy permit would then say we have to follow it as, even though it's not increase in flow, we would still have to follow the same path. So,
okay, so, what I'm hearing the board say is, no. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the other bit is that we would end up saying we're interpreting a definite, for our regulation, we're interpreting our
Right.
definition of new construction exactly, which mirrors Title V, differently than
Yeah.
we would apply title, you know, it's like, if it's not new construction, then you wouldn't have to, you know, you wouldn't have to meet all the other standards.
I'm just trying to save them,
I know you are, I think it's a very good, I get it.
and the,
I'm not,
operation and maintenance.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's,
1.8
it's,
kilowatt.
yeah, no,
Which in the old days, that would have been satisfactory, and now it's not so satisfactory, that's all.
I appreciate it, I appreciate it.
I try to help where I can, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and we
Yeah.
appreciate that you came in
Yeah.
looking for advice, so you
Just-
can
Yeah.
Yeah,
guide your clients
Right.
in a way that will be successful.
All right, I'm all set.
All
We'll
right,
see how we made out now.
thank you, Mr. Potter.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that, signatures, anything else?
no,
No, you're up.
Okay, so, excuse me. I move that we adjourn this meeting at 4:50 PM.
second,
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.